Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is Monday evening, which means only one thing, Monday review, and time to look back at Saturday's Sky Bet League One 1-1 draw at Shrewsbury Town. Is it Shrewsbury or is it Shrewsbury? I found myself on the match day live, alternating between the two. I'm sure someone from the Salop cast will be able to help me out, and apologies if I offended anyone by pronouncing it incorrectly. Anyway, a little diversion there, but yeah, 1-1 at the weekend up in Shropshire, and wasn't a great game, was it? Let's be honest. It was played in horrendous conditions. It was wet, it was windy, it was bitty, it was stop-start. There was very little good football on display. There was no fluidity to the game. Draw was probably the fairest result, I thought. I don't think either side done enough to win it, to be quite honest. I thought we started quite bright, early doors in the game, sort of first 10 minutes. Remember, we got some good territory really early on, but we never really did anything with it. And then the goal that we conceded midway through the first period, pretty soft, isn't it, from the corner. I think Tom O'Connor, who I thought was decent enough on his first appearance back at the club, I think he got involved in a little bit of wrestling rather than ball watching, and he never makes an attempt to head the football, and their fella Brad Walker manages to nod it into the deck, and it sort of skips up through a load of bodies, and Jack Bonham evidently can't see it, and it ends up in the corner. But it wasn't the greatest goal to concede. I mean, no goal's good to concede, but obviously if a team scores after playing some wonderful one-touch football and getting in behind, you can almost understand it a little more. But when it's like that, you just feel a little bit frustrated. But and then after that, the game was just not very good, to be quite honest. If you're neutral, it's not one that you'd probably watch all the way through. You'd have probably switched off. Best chance that we had first period was the Verdane Oliver one, where I think Jacob Mellis does really well to pinch possession on the halfway line, and he releases Big Verdane, who's, I think he's one-on-one with Ebanks Landell, the centre half, who was wearing like the big sort of boxing skull cap. And yeah, he drives into the box, and I think he can maybe cut inside onto his left foot and sort of bring the penalty into play, but he doesn't. He decides to go early, and he shanks it wide, and it hits the stanchion, and it's not the prettiest of efforts, but that was as good as it got for us in terms of clear-cut chances, if you can call it that, in the first period. And we went in at the break 1-0 down, and Steve Evans has come out since and said that he wasn't happy with the first half performance. We were off the pace. We gave them too much space. We gave them too much time. We didn't press, and I thought there were bits that we did really good, but it always seemed to be followed by something really bad. We consistently seemed to went from the sublime to the ridiculous. I think one part of the play that summed it up really well was Josh Eccles in the middle of the park had two players coming towards him, and he drags it back with one foot and flicks it between them with the other, and then he tries to roll a simple 5-yard ball, and he can't even manage that, unfortunately, and they turned over possession again, which was highly annoying at the time, because there was a few occasions where we did the harder part really well and got ourselves into a position where we could break on them, and then we did the simple part badly and put ourselves on the back foot again. So I'd imagine the half-time tea talk would have been pretty stern from Mr. Evans and Mr. Rayner, and we came out second half again, and I said, we're keeping the ball a lot better here on the Match Day Live, and then, bugger me, we couldn't keep it for 5 minutes after that, and Shrewsbury had their best spell of the second half, and a couple of corners, built a little bit of pressure, and then they had one that Jack Bonham come and flapped out a little bit, and the header was cleared off the line by Josh Eccles, who was a nomination by plenty for man of the match. I went for someone else. I thought Josh was decent enough. By no means was he poor, and he got better as the game went on, certainly, but I thought, like plenty, first period, he was guilty of wasting possession too easily at times, and but yeah, he got stronger as the game went on, and certainly second half he was one of our better players. But I did go for Jack Tucker myself as man of the match. Throughout the 90 minutes, I thought he was really good up against big Leon Clark, who comes with loads of experience, loads of physicality, loads of know-how, and I thought he stood up really well to that. And I don't remember, Leon Clark ever really getting the better of him in a one-on-one situation. There was one where he broke Leon Clark and Jack out to cover, and managed to hold him up. He got back with a bit of pace and then held the play up and done well, and we managed to get it clear. But I thought Jack Tucker was, again, he's getting back to somewhere near his best, which is great to see. But yeah, that was probably as good as it got for the home side second period. And then they sort of sat back from about the 55th minute and thought, right, we'll stick to what we've got and hold and see if we can, you know, dig out a 1-0 and see if we can play on the break. And in fairness, they played on the break for pretty much the whole of the game. It was a weird setup. It seemed that we were the home team trying to do all the pressing and they were trying to pinch it and catch us out. But second period, they couldn't get out. We wasn't great again in terms of quality in the final third. We made a change at the break, didn't we? We took off Jacob Mellis, who just didn't see enough of the ball. He worked really hard without it again, but it wasn't his type of game. And we moved Tom O'Connor to the left and brought Declan Drysdale in alongside Josh Eccles, his Coventry teammate, in the middle of the park, and went 4-4-2 and pushed Dominic Samuel right up alongside for Dane Oliver. But it didn't really work in a sense that we created loads and loads of chances. It took us a while to get going. It was a bit of a slow burner. The best one we did create was when Drysdale himself picked up the ball just outside the box and played a good ball out to our left, and Tom O'Connor drilled it across the box. In fairness to Dane Oliver, he's unlucky with the first effort, looking back at the highlights. I thought he'd scuffed it at first, but he gets a decent enough connection. It looks like it's probably going back across from where it's came from into the corner, but it hits the defender. And then from there, Dominic Samuel's 8 yards out, and he's just got to hit the target, and it's 1-1, isn't it? And we all know what happened. For Dane Oliver, in trying to get out of the way, got in the way, and it slapped him around the head, and he basically cleared it off the line for him with the keeper absolutely beaten. And at that point, you're probably starting to think as a fan of us, is it going to be our day? Are we going to have one of them where nothing comes off and we go away empty-handed? But I think one thing that we've learned pretty quickly about this group of players is that there's a desire and an application to go to the very end, and there's a real willingness to not know when we're beat. And right at the end, we chucked on Trey Coyle, we chucked on John Akindi, who'd come on late for Dominic Samuel, I think, who'd run his race. And I said on the Matchday Live, we got a throw on, didn't we, wide on our left. And I said if Connor Ogilvie can just get it flatter than the ones that Ryan Jackson had been trying to launch into the box. It seemed that Ryan Jackson was having issues trying to drive the ball, and then obviously it was slippery and it was coming out sort of high and slow, which is easier to defend. But Connor managed to get a flat one, and John Akindi, credit to him, who's been out of favour, he created havoc on the edge of the 6-yard box, and he wins the initial flick on. The ball bounces into a dangerous area, and I think Zech Medley has a shot from about 4 or 5 yards, and it's blocked, and it comes out to the middle of the box around 8 yards out, and Jordan Graham shows wonderful composure to wrap his left foot around it and whip it into the corner. 95th minute, I think it was, because there was something like 8 minutes of injury time after Ebanks Landell had gone down for about a third time with a head problem. He seemed to be really suffering. I'm not sure whether it was a concussion or a cut, but ironically, him continually having to get treatment ended up helping us out, because we got our equaliser deep into added on time. And like I say, it was probably about a fair result. Neither team done enough to win it. I can't really remember any keeper making a proper save of real note. Both had to come and grab a couple of crosses and punch a couple, and there was a couple that they had to fall on. But aside from that, I don't really remember proper chances. The best save of the game is probably the Dane Oliver one from Dominic Samuel, in all honesty. And aside from that second half, despite having loads of territory, the only other real chance we had was Josh Eccles, who dragged one wide from about 20 yards. But Steve Evans was adamant that we'd left 2 points up there. I'm not so sure. I thought it was a fair result, the draw, and I can understand why he's come out and he's bigging his players up. I've got no issue with that. But if he was a neutral, you'd probably say that the 1-1 was about right. There was a little talking point first half about the goal, and I've had a little debate with Salopcast Ollie from there over the weekend. There's a foul for me in the build-up to their goal. Connor Ogilvie gets caught by their player who's lunging across, probably to try and block it, but he's a bit out of control. He's not motioning towards Connor. I'm not saying he's trying to do him or anything like that, but he definitely catches Connor Ogilvie's kicking foot, and then Connor struggles. He sort of half limps back in and blocks the cross that then leads to the corner for the opener. So for me, we was a little bit harshly treated there. And then second half, there's one from Declan Drysdale. Said at the time I thought it was a red, but having watched it back, I'd probably say it's a yellow. Again, he looks like he's trying to jump across to block after their centre half. It may even have been Ebanks Landell yet again. As a poor touch, and it runs away from him, and there's they come together. But I don't think that Drysdale's trying to hurt anybody as well. And I think the ref probably got that one correct. It was a yellow card. There's definitely contact, and it was definitely a booking. But again, it's one of them, isn't it? Like I said to Ollie from the Salop cast, if it's his left back getting caught and his side conceding, he's screaming foul. He's adamant that he wouldn't do that, but only he knows. And the other one on Drysdale, of course, if that was the other way round and it was Drysdale on the end of it, we'd be screaming red card. I'm big enough to admit that. That's how football works. We all want to back our own players, don't we? But I thought Drysdale was pretty good when he came on. He offered more of a presence. He was a big size in the middle of the park and certainly helped out Josh Eccles, and it gave us a foothold in the game. But yeah, in terms of positives and negatives this week, I'll start with the negatives. I thought we went too long too early. That was the biggest thing for me. I know the conditions weren't great, but I just thought we potentially should have got it down a lot more. If it was windy and swirly and the pitch was zippy, we could have got it on the deck and tried to get people in. But I know Jordan Graham come out afterwards in his interview and said the pitch was heavy and it made everyone feel leggy. So maybe that was the reason that we had to go aerial more than ideally. But Shrewsbury were no better. And soft goal we've conceded. Again, it's not the first time I've said that. That'll come from a little bit of inexperience. Again, it's one that's definitely avoidable, isn't it? I mean, Connor Ogilvie does well to block the cross, but we should do better from the corner. And the bloke's headed it from 10 yards out and it's bounced through people. I'm not blaming Jack Bonham. It's just, it should never get to that point, I don't think. But in terms of positives, there's more. Again, I think the biggest one is that we've managed to go and grab ourselves a point when we've been way, way, way below our best. And that all the best teams have that trait. So that bodes well moving forward. Like I say, I thought Declan Drysdale gave us a presence when he come on second period. A little bit too much of a presence on their centre half at one point maybe. And Josh Eccles, like I said, he got better as the game went on. He wasn't quite man of the match for me, but he was certainly up there. And Jack Tucker, I think, is starting to show the consistency that he showed last season, which is really good to see. And fingers crossed, we're not confirmed yet, but I think there was no injuries, which is quite nice for us at the moment. No central midfielders out for the rest of the season, so that's always a blessing, especially when we have another midweek game coming up tomorrow night, Tuesday. It is the well-loved leasings.com trophy. We travel to Portman Road for a 7 o'clock kick-off against Ipswich Town. But I'd imagine it'll be a very different Ipswich Town to the one that started the season very well in the league, that have only dropped 2 points from their first 4 games. And only conceded 1 goal at the weekend. That was the first time they've shipped, I think, which was against MK Dons. I'd imagine both teams are going to make loads and loads and loads of changes. In fact, Steve Evans has come out this afternoon and confirmed on our Twitter feed that we will make plenty of them. And I imagine Paul Lambert will do the same. You'd say that they're probably favourites still because their squad's probably bigger than ours and they've got more options. But I'm confident that whatever team Evans picks, we'll go up there and we'll give a good account of ourselves. We did in the first group stage game, which was against Crawley, and we come out 2-1 winners in that, and there was a few that we weren't sure about that performed really well that night. So in that sense, it serves a purpose, this competition. It's, you know what, it's much maligned by plenty of football fans, but weirdly, if we end up getting a win, we could be in the next round already. So then it'd be interesting to see how we start treating it as we get into the knockout stages, because I don't think we've ever got there in this current guise, have we? Won't do a score prediction. I don't do it for these games because I have no idea what the teams are going to be. Right, that is enough from me this evening. It is transfer deadline day, but that's more, I think, for the Premier League and international transfers. Ours technically still runs until a week Friday, the 16th, when we can still buy from the Premier League and the Premier League can buy from us. But for all international transfers, 11 PM is the deadline tonight. Sky Sports News, if that's your thing, go and watch it. It's not for me. It's become a little bit of a circus and a little bit fabricated, and it's not proper football, is it? So, but again, it comes back to frustration that you see in these Premier League clubs chucking millions and millions of pounds at footballers when we're in the middle of a pandemic, and some clubs in the lower leagues can't even, you know, rub 2 pennies together, so to speak, and are struggling to survive. But that's probably for another day. That'd be a bigger podcast, bigger video that's been done already. Anyway, enjoy your Monday evening. The first day of the week is out of the way. Jill sits 6th. They're in the playoffs at the moment, which is always good, even in this embryonic stage of the league table. I'll be back Thursday to review the Ipswich game. And to look ahead to next Saturday's league fixture, which I think is Oxford at home. That should be a good test. And maybe there might be some transfer news by then, but it's all gone very quiet at the moment, hasn't it? I think we're pretty much there in terms of the squad. Anyway, like I say, enjoy your Monday evening. keep staying safe. Please keep liking, subscribing and retweeting. You know where we are. And until next time, up the Gills.